pony knowledge by. Oh, better. I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool, stable do. Your horse racing fantasy comes true. But no, stable do.
Download the Stable Duel app and play today.
Fun weekend ahead. It is a big one over at Parks. Pennsylvania Derby Day on Saturday. 10 stakes races, 5 graded stakes races, 2 grade ones that are worth $1 million, and a big stable duel contest on Saturday. So we'll have a lot of focus on that this weekend. Gino Bacola here alongside my man, the sniper, Barry Spears. How we doing this morning, buddy?
Hanging in there. How you doing, man?
Doing very well. And for those of you who watch us each and every week, you might notice that Matt DeSantis is not here with us this morning. Matt is actually en route over to Parks because he's going to be at the Pennsylvania Derby tomorrow, taking in all the big festivities. So good luck to Matt. If you want to get some of Matt's thoughts on tomorrow's big day, if you follow him at Failed to Menace on Twitter, he has a lot of content that he'll be talking about for tomorrow and producing for tomorrow's races. He already did a big preview of the card with Sarah El-Badwi, where they went through, I think, all of the races on the Saturday card. So good luck to Matt this weekend. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. You're entering the no chalk zone right now, folks. Barry and myself are going to dish out some plays for today and for tomorrow. We're going to give you no chalks. We're going to give you horses that are in the 5-1 range and above, and we'll talk all about stable duel. So for today, we're going to talk some Gulfstream Park, because Gulfstream is one of the places that you can play stable duel games. You can play at Gulfstream. It's a $30 entry game. There's also a free ride at Delaware. So if you want to test out the game, if you've never gotten involved before, try today at Delaware. It won't cost you anything to download the app, won't cost you anything to come and play along. Pimlico, Hawthorne, Penn National all have different games going. And shout out at Hawthorne, friend Emily Gullickson is going to be helping out on the broadcast over at Hawthorne. Emily from Optics EQ is one of the sharper handicappers out there that you will meet. I've been lucky enough to talk with Emily many times on my podcast, and she helps out, and she is very, very sharp. So if you're someone playing Hawthorne, you'll get some additional help throughout the meet from Emily on the broadcast. And I would recommend, if she's talking about horses that you may not have on your radar, give them another look, because she's very, very sharp. So that's Friday, Gulfstream, Delaware, Pimlico, Hawthorne, Penn National. But Saturday, Pennsylvania Derby Day, $5,000 in prizes in the big entry game, $50 to enter. There's also a smaller game at Parks. You have a Gulfstream game, a Pimlico game, and a Losal game. So we'll be talking Friday, Gulfstream, and then Saturday, Parks. Opening up next week, Barry, we've also got Santa Anita, which will have that nice little 5-week meet where they have a lot of the Breeders' Cup prep races, and we'll be able to talk about Santa Anita coming up for the next 5 or 6 weeks each and every weekend with some of those.
Keeneland on board the week after that, right?
Yeah. So very exciting now as we get into Breeders' Cup prep time. That's basically what it feels like right now with this weekend coming up. And this was a good card they drew at Parks on Saturday. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Before we do, let's start over at Gulfstream Park on Friday, Barry. They have that $30 game that we can play in a little bit later on today. You're looking at races 1, 4, and 5. I'll be looking at races 4, 8, and 9. So talk to us about the opener. Where are we going to get things started today at Gulfstream Park?
Yeah, the old lid lifter.
Yeah.
I usually don't like, having horses that I like in the first race so much, because it tends to be a little bit crazy, especially at Gulfstream. You'll see a lot of big prices come in. Some you can't explain because the races that they card, the first couple of races, are usually very, very inexpensive horses that are kind of unpredictable, and this is no exception. This is a maiden $12,500 claimer, full field of 8, and I'm going to go with number 7. Feel Like Guessing. Now, I've said on this program a few times, a lot actually, that I don't particularly like betting horses in maiden claimers that have lost at the level. This horse was running at 16,000 prior to getting a break back in April.
Which is at that point of the meet, which is like a much higher level even, right? Because that's like the
Exactly.
stronger part. So it's like a double level drop almost.
Yeah, I mean, you're still getting horses at that point of the meet that are still pretty good, that haven't really kind of gone to where they're going to go as far as for the rest of the year or starting their campaigns for the summer.
Yep.
So you're going to get tougher fields, even at Tampa. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
her first race was at Tampa. She didn't run all that bad, to be
No.
honest with you. And I guess they were trying to force this horse to be a grass horse, and it just doesn't seem like that's the case. Um, Obviously they have an Irish bred here that, or not an Irish bred, but an Irish sire
Yeah.
who was bred in Ireland. Um,
So they just
so
felt like lots of turf here, right?
right,
Yeah.
and there's nothing, there's nobody spectacular in here. The two horse will probably be the favorite, Provocativa, but I don't think that horse is super exceptional. Has some speed, but I think this horse is just as good and has just as much speed. So I don't really think that's a problem. Coming out of a barn that does well with first time acquisitions at somewhere around 23%. Um, Getting their go-to rider as well. They're batting at almost 40%. So I think this is a good spot to start off early, 8-1 on the morning line. So in stable duel, it's not going to cost you all that much, where you could find a favorite later on that may look solid that you can kind of go after.
And that's what the name of this game is. We're all about building your lineup. Right now, a lot of people are playing fantasy football or daily fantasy. If you're someone who plays on DraftKings and you've ever played with the format where you have to build your lineup in a salary cap, that's what we're doing here. So you can't just pick the heavy favorite in every single race along the way. You have to kind of maneuver your lineup so that way you can't go over a certain point. So when you use a horse like Barry does in race number 1, that's at 8-1, that puts you in really nice shape because you have to fill 10 spots and you have $50,000 to do so. Well, this horse would be $3,000 based on the price. You're in really nice shape. Now you can spend up in a couple of the other races to be right on par. Feel like guessing is a good way to start on Friday at Gulfstream Park, 8-1, and only 3,000 in your stable dual lineup.
Yeah, you might have to double up too in today's Gulfstream
Yeah,
race
because there's only
because
9, right?
there's 9. So you may, choose to double up in one race, even double up in 2 races, just skip one that looks superiorly chalky, and you could kind of work around that with going with 2 in another race.
So we both will move along, I believe, to race number 4, which is a 5.5 furlong synthetic sprint for the 2-year-olds. Barry, I'm going to go to a horse that has some experience. And I mean, if I didn't pick
I
Stephanie, my
think
love, if I did,
you'd be in trouble. You get
I'd
kicked
be in
out.
some serious trouble. Like if that horse didn't jump off the page at me, I would be sleeping on the couch for a long, long time. Now we dive into her form, and she's run 3 races, and she has not run a monster race, but all of those races are fine. They're solid, and she's a measuring stick for this field. She debuted in the slop, so she didn't catch a fast track in her career debut. And she ran 3rd that day. It wasn't a bad effort. She was up in the race, and she backed up. Then in her second start, she runs into a horse named Princess Jessie, who comes back and wins their next start at Delaware, and they beat winners next time out. So that horse is 2 for 2. In her 3rd start, she comes back, she drops in class, but she again catches a pretty sharp horse, a horse named Creative Cadence, who comes back and beats winners over at Monmouth in their next start. So I'm just looking at the races that she exits, and I just think they're tougher than this particular race. If she runs the same sort of races she's been running, that'll probably put her right on the wire in here against this group that I don't think all that much of. So for me, the number 9, Stephanie, my love, who is 5-1 on the morning line and will cost you 6,000 in your stable dual lineup. And of course, Stephanie, my love, I had to do that one also. But this is not a strong race, honestly. And she has some okay races. She might just be an okay thing in a race that isn't all that strong. Barry, tell us who you're looking at in this 4th race.
I actually went outside of you there with number 11, Avital Hero. I went back and looked at this horse's race on August 21st, and the comment in the forum says bump start, and I had all kinds of trouble trying to find a bump.
There's
I don't know,
nothing.
maybe you can see it,
Let's see if we find it here.
but I couldn't see it. I think it may have happened where they have those little I don't know what's there in the infield. There we go.
I
It
mean,
kind of
yeah,
got
but
bumped.
that was just gonna say, like, that's
It's
not that much, right? Yeah.
right. It's not
Yeah.
enough, but you know, didn't really get a great start. I guess that's the
Yeah.
overriding factor here.
Yeah.
The start wasn't that great, whether you say the horse got bumped or just didn't get out of the gate well. First time out, which happens a lot. Horses just have a little sort of mishap at the beginning of the race, and I didn't think the horse really ran that bad, or at least not as bad as the as the past performances may seem to look like. Because if you look at number 3, Lady Petal, this horse kind of did the same thing. They were in the same race on August 21st. Again, that horse actually took the worst of it. And that bump hard between in the start makes a lot of sense. Came back, they dropped this horse onto a synthetic, just like this race, and ran well. And I think that the 11 will do the same,
Yeah, it's
if
just like
not
they're
even
one move
better.
ahead, right?
Correct. Yes.
And
And
we
I
might
think
be
this
able to
horse
catch a price on it because of that.
exactly. This is the time.
Yep.
So, you're going to get a decent price on Avital Hero, and he's not that far off of the contenders. I mean, you see the 3 who did the exact same move, the 4, they're all kind of in proximity to one another. This is a good race to kind of attack because it's hard to take a favorite in a race like this.
And that's why you and I both attack this race, right? Even if we don't like the
Absolutely.
same horse, we both feel the same way about this race being there's no monsters in here. It looks like a race ripe for at least a middle to bigger price. Avital Hero for Barry, Stephanie, my love. For me, 9 and 11. So for my play, it would cost you 6,000 in your stable dual lineup, 5-1. And for Barry, 10,000 for at 10-1, just 1,000 in your stable dual lineup. So now Barry's giving you a $3,000 horse and a $1,000 horse to put in your lineup. You're in really nice shape so far if you're building at Gulfstream for Friday.
One more thing about Avital Hero.
Yeah.
The bullet on September 10th
Oh, I know, like a
on the
wake up.
synthetic.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all indications is this horse going to run a lot better than she did the first time, and I just want to be there in the winner circle.
Well, because what you see with the pattern like that is, okay, this filly was okay, whatever. She was fine in the mornings, but then they race and she figures it out, right?
That's
Like,
what it looks like.
it
Yeah.
looks like, okay, after the race now, she gets back to the track. She has this slow builder. And then the first time we really like ask her for a little something in the mornings, she understands what she's doing. And you see that growth and development sometimes. Avital Hero for the sniper. That's the 11 in race number 4. So let's continue on. I have a couple more over at Gulfstream Park for Friday, and then we're going to dive into some of that really nice Parks card for Saturday with the Pennsylvania Derby Day. So in race number 8, that'll be my next play. Now I always like to.
I'm in the 5th.
Oh, you're in the 5th. Okay, so you go 5 first. I'm in 8 and 9. Now I always like to encourage everyone, if you want to handicap the races, if you ever want to get a little bit more in depth, like you see us doing here, get on over to drf.com. Daily Racing Form is the place I always go for the past performances when we're looking at race replays, charts, when we're looking at all of our analysis here. That's what we're diving into. You can purchase past performances for any tracks that you're playing, any day that you're playing. And now at DRF, the more if you wager with DRF bets, you can actually get free formulator too. So if you like the way that this is, check out DRF bets, go get involved, maybe in race number 5 at Gulfstream Park today. Who are you looking at, my friend?
We're going with number geez, my computer froze. Number 7, Wandering West. Um, this race, I mean, I'll set it up here as a claimer, $20,000 claimer for horses that have never won 3 races or have not won a race since March 23rd, 2022. Kind of specific conditions here, but there seems to be a little bit of speed here. The one man on the moon should have some speed.
And kind of has to
Hercules,
go because they draw the rail
right?
too.
The rail. Hercules has shown speed in the past. Actually, lately has been shown a little bit more speed than usual. Hard Bell, who is a tough read in a race like this, um, definitely has speed. Examiner will probably show speed as well. And I can't trust the horses that are probably going to be bet here in Hercules and Hard Bell. I mean, Hercules has run 2 races back to back that seemingly kind of not characteristic of this horse. I know he's in a good barn and he's in good hands after the claim, but he was claimed the last 2 times. I don't know how much this horse could keep this together, especially going into this race, which is might be a little bit tougher than what he's been doing before. Same thing with Hard Bell. Goes to the lead and fades almost every time. It was almost a fluke when the horse won the last time way back in September of last year. Um, and that horse is 3-1 on the line. And I think Wandering West just kind of falls into a perfect trip here. If you look at this horse going longer, um, because this is a mile race, the last 2 times this horse ran a mile, which was May 28th, 2021 and April 25th, 2021, were probably this horse's best races, period. Second off the layoff, coming into this really well, nice work pattern. I think
Finished
all
behind the
systems are
same
going.
horse to
Yep,
Scar, which is just like an angle that I like. When you get beat by the same horse a couple times and then you get away from that horse, it's just, oh, don't have to deal with the horse that's a little bit better than you.
right. And even if you look at the race after that Scar race, Pudding, who's turned
Yeah.
into a really good hard knocking handicap horse.
Yep.
So it kind of fits here with Wandering West. He's not the biggest, long shot that will play, but 6-1 is not too bad, kind of in the middle of everything,
Yep.
and can still help you open up and maybe find a favorite later on.
Yeah, it's just right on par with what you need in your stable dual lineup. That $5,000 price, second start off the long layoff for Wandering West. Get ready for this guy to take a nice step forward today. I really like this play from Barry in race number 5. So I will head to race number 8, and I believe there's going to be a heavy favorite in here, Poima, who is at 7-5. And this is a situation where I probably won't be spending up on Poima in stable duel. If you do, I can understand why you decide this race. But as Barry mentioned earlier, there's only 9 races on the card. So one race you're going to have to double up. And I do think that the 6, Keiko, should be able to sit a nice trip. Now, they faced Poima a couple starts back and got into a little bit of trouble, kind of got in some traffic. The last 2 starts where they've been a little more aggressive, they've been able to race just a little bit better overall. I don't know if this horse can beat Poima, but I do think this horse can sit closest and might be able to just fall in line. And if you're looking for a horse in some under exotics or a horse to try to beat the favorite, I think this might be the one that can sit in a spot right behind. You sort of look at the rest of the field. There are 1 or 2 others that look like they can press. I'd love for Keiko to be sitting 3rd or 4th right behind them and just hope that the 2 Poima stops in here. So an alternative to the heavy favorite Poima, we're going to go with Keiko, who's started to put some races together. I think they always like this filly when you sort of dive into her career trajectory. She wins, and then they throw her in some pretty tough races, and she just maybe was in a little too tough for some of them. Now they dropped her back down against claimers on August the 7th. It was sort of a, okay, let's get you back with your friends. And she puts back-to-back races together. Now you can take another step back up. So I'm going to give the 6 a little look at 6-1, Barry.
Yeah, I actually think this horse is probably going to get bet down a little bit from there, just because of the factor that the horse is going to be forwardly placed. Most likely, hopefully, just flanking Poira or Poema, sorry. if that happens, then that could be a really good, just a really good play because it just kind of skate right along with that horse and just outfinish her.
Yep, and even at that point, second and third place points at a horse of that price is fine if Poima does, but I think we can sit behind Poima and we'll go in a different direction there in race number 8. So let's finish up Gulfstream Park for Friday with race number 9. And in this one, Sniper, I like this filly a little bit here. I'm looking at the number 6 Tout Ensemble, and she's raced 3 times in her career, and I can go through each of them, and they all make sense. So she debuted in the Chad Brown barn last year in July, but in her debut race at Saratoga when she was only 7-2, she misses the break, and it's on a muddy racetrack. And the race actually comes back live. The third place finisher, Trade Secret, came out of that race to win a maiden special weight in their next start. So pretty easy to excuse the race that day because muddy racetrack, let's say she just didn't handle the mud. Now she comes back in her second start at Belmont Park, and she doesn't get a good start either. She loses her footing again that day. And then this race is followed by an 11-month layoff. So if something went wrong with her in that second start because she was gone for 11 months, she changes barns, and she shows back up on August the 14th here at Gulfstream Park in the Lisa Lewis barn. She gets money again. She's only 7-2 on August the 14th, and she runs exactly like you would expect a horse to run coming off of a long, long layoff like that. She hops a little bit at the start, but then she's right up in the middle of a pace battle. There are 3 horses that are battling. She's second. She's in between. She doesn't really seem to like being in between horses, but, she takes back and she just can't really come on again. And, at the top of the lane, she's right in the mix. She's right there, and then she just tires. And if you look at her running line, she showed a little bit of improvement. If she takes one step forward here, that puts her right on the wire with this group. I think it's a good spot for Tout Ensemble. When you go through each of her races, you can understand why she hasn't maybe put it all together quite yet. And I think there's a big race in her somewhere, and it may be today.
Yeah, I like horses like this that, when they come back off of their 2-year-old year and they run a similar number off the bench.
Yep. You point this out all the time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's very, very effective. I mean, you just have to pay attention and kind of connect the dots here. I mean, look at the owners of this horse and where this horse came from.
Yep.
Peter Brandt still owns the horse after shipping barns, which
Mhm.
which kind of says a lot. I know they paid quite a bit of money for this horse, 185,000. Um, and for whatever reason, he's not in Brown's barn anymore. And I'm guessing probably because this horse probably isn't a turf monster.
Mhm.
So, this kind of makes sense. This move, coming off the layoff in this spot at this racetrack, everything kind of lines up, and I like this pick.
Tout Ensemble is 6-1. Will cost you 5,000 in your stable dual lineup to use, and that's my final play for today at Gulfstream Park. So for Friday, we both dished out a couple of Gulfstream plays to help you in your lineup. Remember, you can play today at Gulfstream Park in a $30 entry. Go download that Stable Duel app right now. It is free to do so. Let's jump into Saturday, and as we do, we can take a look at the big races at parks. This day, Barry, has turned into a fantastic day. They really, really knocked it out of the park. 10 stakes. Even the PA breds get to run for $200,000 early on the card in some stakes races. Then we have 5 graded stakes races. The 9th race is going to kick off the mandatory payout in the Philly Big 5. 4 of the 5 races in the Pick 5 are graded stakes. 2 of them are grade 1s. Really, really fun field. And if you're curious at what the field looks like from a stable duel standpoint, here's what the cotillion field looks like. So if you were going to play in the stable duel lineup and you're going to put together a lineup, if you want to pick a horse in the cotillion, here is what the chart will look like. Now you have all the horses' names. You have the jockeys that are riding them. You have their morning line odds. And then next to that in green, that's the number that it would cost you to put them in your stable dual lineup. So when Barry and I are talking about an 8-to-1 horse, that's $3,000. This is always what the pricing scale is. Always. So once you've played a few stable duel games, you'll start to really understand what each price of each horse is. You kind of figure out that, okay, 6-to-1, that's kind of my middle ground. Anything 6-to-1 and above, I'm actually in really good shape. So if you're looking for 6-to-1s, 8-to-1s, 10-to-1s, that's the kind of horses that you're really looking for in stable duel. So the cotillion drew the Kentucky Oaks winner Secret Oath, and Barry, both the cotillion and the PA Derby are really competitive, really good betting races, and they're fun races for stable duel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just fun races all the way around. And this one in particular, I kind of zeroed in on a Manor. I like that horse a lot in this spot.
Adair Manor, who is 7-2 in the Baffert barn, who had a nice early part of the season, and Adair Manor, kind of the class of the West Coast. And Adair Manor has some big races that it doesn't feel like she's really been able to quite show yet and put all together. She was your runner-up in the Black Eyed Susan. Adair Manor is 7-2. The horse who I'm looking at a little bit in this race, Barry, is Shahama. She was a filly who there was a lot of buzz about her when she was coming into the Kentucky Oaks. She ran those monster races in Maidon. She was 4-for-4, and she had never really been tested. We didn't really know what Shahama even was capable of doing. And then she comes over here. She's training pretty well. She runs in the Oaks, and she runs a sixth that's a little bit better than it might have looked on paper. She just kind of missed the break. She was way out of it. She ends up splitting the field. Then she comes back and she finishes second in the Mother Goose, and she puts it all together. I think she's starting to take steps forward now after a few races in the U.S. I like Shahama a little bit in there at 8-to-1 with Flavian Pratt jumping aboard. But that's a little later at Parks in the cotillion. Let's dive into the Parks card a little earlier on the card. Barry, I know you're looking at races 7, 9, and 10. So let's start in race number 7. This is also a stakes race here. Tell us who we're going to look at in this 7th race.
Yeah, it's the Parks Dirt Mile. It's a $200,000 stake. And
yeah, their stakes races all have $200K up for grabs, plus just big money on the line.
Yeah, that's why you're getting full fields and everybody's showing up. But yeah, the card is excellent, top to bottom. But in this race in particular, I just can't trust a horse like Mind Control at 6-5.
No.
I mean, what horse are you going to get? That's really the question. And I'm not really too sure, as most people are. That's why, Mind Control doesn't really get bet down to favoritism often. And for this horse to be morning line, 6-5 says a lot about what's going on here. But I can't trust this horse.
No.
Not at 6-5. So we're looking to get this horse beat. I think there's enough speed in here between Two Boss and possibly Far Mo Power that it's going to set up for a horse like the one that I ended up choosing, which is Don't Mess With Me, which is the one horse, getting Tyler Connor coming in from Penn National.
Tyler is really good. I will tell you.
He's a really good rider.
He is. And I've had the privilege of talking with him a few times too. And he is someone who really takes it seriously and he puts a lot of work in. He's very talented if you watch the Penn National races a lot.
Yeah. And I think the extension to going 2 turns this time is going to help this horse positionally. I think, if you look at the past performances, the horse gets kind of far back in races that are shorter, but in the longer races is up closer. And I think that's going to help here. Because
look at the Laurel race going a mile where they sit so much closer up early on. And even at 18-1, like in a stakes race, that's probably comparable to something like this. They run well, but just they're able to get out front, get comfortable, and not having to come from the back so much just to get into contention.
Right. And I think also the post position is going to help that also. Mm-hmm. Being on the rail, they really don't have any other options. other than to kind of get in the race a little bit earlier, which is perfect because I don't want this horse on the lead. You can basically kind of follow mind control around the track and take over at the top of the stretch and win going away. That's what I see happening here, especially with Two Boss, getting IRAD and probably going to put a lot of pressure on mind control because I wouldn't think anybody in this race is really scared of mind control.
And I had to mention a great name, Nick Papa Giorgio, right? From Vegas Vacation.
Vacation, yeah,
Oh
man.
man, it's so great when he's like, when you're a young guy and you're watching that and you're like underage and you're seeing him go out there and he's getting the fake ID and they're on the strip and they put the picture and then all of a sudden he gets all the cars and everyone's coming at. I mean, it is awesome. That is just such a cool moment. Old Nick Papa Giorgio, baby, Vegas Vacation. But the sniper, we're going to take a shot against Mind Control in race number 7 in the Parks Dirt Mile. And we're going to go with the number 1, Don't Mess With Me, who should be able to sit a nice trip. Good luck to Tyler Connor, who's going to be jumping aboard. He was aboard a couple starts back for that good 3rd place performance at Penn. Should be able to save ground nicely inside there. Don't Mess With Me. That's in race number 7. And then we head to race number 9 for the next play. Barry, this is bread and butter for you, my friend. This is a 5 furlong turf sprint. It's the grade 3 turf monster. Barry loves it. Chuck hates it. Turf sprints, baby. That's why we're partners with the people that we're partners with, because we're opposites. The opposites attract, right? And that's why we end up becoming
balance. Got to balance.
Exactly. We got to balance each other out. Tell us a little bit about this 4th race, or this 9th race, excuse me, the turf monster.
Yeah, this is one of the higher priced turf sprints out there. I mean, there's not many, period, but this one actually is worth a lot of money.
Yep.
In comparison, it's $300,000 stake, the Turf Monster Grade 3. I just have a hard time liking the horse That's Right, number 1. If you look at his past performances, July 17th, June 17th, and May 20th, all easy leads and one going away. I don't think that horse is going to get that kind of a lead in a race like this. And every time this horse gets, kind of around other horses up top, he just folds like a lawn chair. I mean, you see it on the dirt mostly, but still, I just can't buy that this horse gets, head and head with somebody else and he won't fold, especially from the rail. So that being said, I had to look for alternatives, and I'm going to go with a horse that has not, I repeat, has not run on the turf ever. And I'm going with number 5, Uncle Ernie. Now, this horse has just as much speed as anybody here on dirt. He's seems to be very, very quick. Now, I thought it was interesting that he does get Joel Rosario to ride for John Service, who's a career 20% plus trainer, in a race that's worth $300,000, first time turf. It stands out to me as something that doesn't, seem to fit, and that's why I'm going there.
And Uncle Ernie, hasn't raced since March and has some, he looks like he has some issues, because recently he's had a race and then a little time off and then a race, but he looks like he's training really well. This is the race that he last exited. The winner, Hollywood Jet, came back to win their next start, which was in April, which was at Parks, and they won that impressively. The runner-up, Sir Alfred James, that was the horse that we were just looking at. That beat the horse that you liked, Don't Mess With Me. Here, this is a really hard-knocking horse who's now just won back-to-back stakes races and who's run 15 times this year so far. This is Craig Milkowski's favorite horse, Sir Alfred James.
He runs.
Because he runs. He's old school. He always runs. You got Mojo Devation, who came out of that race to come back and win their next start. So For the Love of Bourbon was also in that race, comes back to win their next start. Take a look at this guy. He's won 4 in a row, and he's won 5 of his last 6. That was a really sharp race the last time that we saw Uncle Ernie. Also, he exits a race that's in the months since has come back and looked really,
live.
really live.
Hmm.
Good spot.
Yeah, I mean, what the gamble is this horse takes to the turf, and I think that'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's
And
for a stable dual price of 8-1. You got to take a shot here because there's other races
especially with
where favorites kind of stand out a little bit more, and you can spend up there instead of here.
there's nothing that tells you this horse won't like the turf when you
No,
look throughout the pedigree, right?
no,
And
not
there's just
nothing.
nothing that says that immediately he will love it. But for a horse like this to show up in this spot, even on the cutback, like the 5 furlong should be perfect for him.
Yeah,
If he
I
has
mean,
to press a little bit too, like he could be where he is compared to the one. I'd imagine he's right off the flank of the one, probably, right? Like
yeah,
just right to his
I would think
outside.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think so. But honestly, this isn't really a fantastic field, and he seems to be the fastest of them all.
For a turf sprint like this, it's a contentious group, but it's not necessarily like a classy. It doesn't look like some of the top tier turf sprinters or horses that you might see in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint are in this race.
Correct. Absolutely.
Whereas a lot of the other card races on the card are a little bit classier than this one. This one is still strong and deep from a betting standpoint, but you didn't get as many of the stars of the division to show up in here. So ripe for a possibility and a price play. I'll probably throw the 4 on my pick 4s and pick 5s. A little bit less of a price than we would give out here, but I like this horse cutting back from the mile. He had a trouble trip going long last time. He was trying to get through on the inside and he just could not get through. And it was a good second. And now they turned back. So I think he'll be kind of sitting just off, maybe sitting 3rd or 4th in here. Also, nothing better. So Uncle Ernie for the sniper, 8-1. That'll only cost you 3,000 in your stable dual lineup. So we continue on because this is the fun portion of the card now. The pick 5, which is a mandatory payout, begins in race 9, this one that we were just talking about. And then right next door, the 10th race is the grade 2 Gallant Bob. So from races 8 through 12, we have 5 consecutive graded stakes races. And we have this grade 2, the Gallant Bob. Tell us who you're looking at in this one. This is a 3-year-old sprint for some of the horses that are maybe a tad below the best of the best 3-year-olds and the better sprinters. Maybe some horses who couldn't quite go longer in here because the Pennsylvania Derby is a little too far for them. These are some quality horses. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, this is a tough race, and if you're in that pick 5, this is definitely a spread race, and even the pick 4 starts here too. This is a good race to start off a pick 4 because I just don't feel like the favorite Provocateur will do very much here. I think these are hard knocking horses. Provocateur has got his shot, but I mean the horse ran his best buyer speed figure last time out. I don't expect a number below that will win. And I don't think this horse can pair up. He's shown he's run well after, kind of topping out in the past, but not well enough to win. You do have to look at who he's been facing, like Jack Christopher, Senbei. Those are very formidable foes. But I ended up on a horse on the 8 in Witty. And really, if you take out Witty's last race, August 23rd at Parks, going a mile on the 16th, and then the Penn National
The turf
10
race.
mile turf race. If you just put a line through both those races, this horse is right there with
You're left
everybody.
with 6 races in the top in the exacta.
Exactly. First or second. And this is what this horse wants to do. He's fast enough. Just got beaten the Jersey Shore by Provocateur after a slow start and was a little bit farther behind than they wanted to and still finished up good. I'm expecting a really good performance, off of that. Been training well into this at Fair Hill. This is a wide open race, though. I mean,
And
there's
this is a
there's a couple of
great
horses that I didn't, Provocateur was one of them, and the other one that might attract some attention is Nakatomi, who I didn't like. Of
I
the
agree.
six starts that horse has, he's started slow, 4 of them. So I think it's more of a pattern and a something that's going to happen rather than won't.
Whitty was my second selection in here. My top two are 9-8. And I think Whitty is a must use in pick fours and pick fives. I think it's just a good spot for running Son of a Gun. If you look at his recent form, ever since, put a line through like a few of his races, he didn't run well in the Gotham going long. And now we're starting to look, okay, he just doesn't want to go long. So now let's look at all of his sprint races. He breaks his maiden down here for 40. Then they protect him. Then after he wins back-to-back races, they like, okay, let's take a shot in the Gotham. Okay, we take a shot. He doesn't want to go long. So we cut back to 7 furlongs. He wins. He beats a couple next out winners. Hey, let's see how good he is. We take a chance in a stakes race, and he's not far behind Provocateur and Senbai that day. Then again, they try the Dwyer, probably because it was a small field, just to see if he could go a little bit longer, and he gets crushed by Charge It. They come back in the Amsterdam, and he runs bang-up races and back-to-back of like the best 3-year-old sprint races. In the Amsterdam and then in the Grade 1 Jerkins, he's behind Gunite and Jack Christopher. I mean, if you're looking at Jack Christopher and using him as a measuring stick, he was close to him last time out. His speed figures continue to progress. He's drawn well towards the outside. He should put himself right in this race. I think it's a nice price for running Son of a Gun. He feels like he should be 5-1-ish in this race against this field.
Yeah, those horses are hard to read because you don't really know how good they are because they've been getting thumped by really good horses.
Yeah.
And then they drop into a spot where none of those horses are at. It's kind of hard to tell if they're just, kind of run-of-the-mill horses getting beat by really good horses, or are they actually really a decent horse getting beat by a really good horse.
And if we can get the price one, I'll take that one always versus
always.
The shorter price, right? The one
Always.
that looks like they have similar form, but they're going to offer us a little bit more value. That's running Son of a Gun. So again,
there's another horse that I want to give honorable mention to, and
please
it's
do.
12. The 12, a lot of hope. John
I agree.
Robb,
Yep.
He doesn't really ship much, and when he does, he wins. And this horse is stacks up with with everybody, and I think he's going to get dismissed on the board. So if you don't like this horse in the win spot, you definitely have to use him underneath somewhere.
I spoke with Jessica Paquette on for an interview for my podcast yesterday, and Jessica is going to be heading out to Parks to help them out with the broadcast for Saturday. So she's going to be doing some additional reporting and stuff, and she likes this horse too. And what's nice is if you just look at his last 2 races, I love the versatility that he showed in those 2. On July the 30th, he's sitting just off the pace, right off the lead, and he absolutely crushes a field. And then on August the 26th, it's a stakes race against a little bit tougher competition. And they're going, he's in a spot where he doesn't get the lead. He's drawn towards the outside, so he has to take back a little bit more. He sits, he makes a middle move, and he still wins that day. And he beats Of a Revolution in here. So, yeah, I think he's another pick 4, pick 5 player in a fun race that looks to have some vulnerable favorites. A lot of hope. Another one worth a mention. So, Barry, while we're in this 10th race, I mean, we already talked about the Cotillion last just a few minutes ago, but for anyone who wanted to look at those past performances one more time, this is a nice field. You have, just look at the connections. If you're sitting there going, you know what, I don't play Parks all that much, I don't know this racetrack. Look at the trainers and the jockeys in this race. The 1, Pletcher and Irad Ortiz Jr. The 2, Bob Baffert and Mike Smith. The 3, Pletcher and Johnny V. Then you have the 4, Beach Days, who has some of the strong local connections, which is always fun. You have Bowman and Mann. Then you go Chad Brown and Joel Rosario, D. Wayne Lucas and Luis Saez, the Kentucky Oaks winner. You have Pletcher and Pratt. And then you have another really good local trainer, Robert Reed Jr. Paco Lopez jumps aboard. And you have Asmussen and Florent Giraud. It is literally a who's who of the top barns and the top jockeys in all of the U.S. and in North America. They could not really have drawn much stronger of a race for this. And I think, honestly, for the PA Derby, maybe Nest could have shown up here and maybe Epicenter could have shown up in the PA Derby. But if they did, the fields probably would have been shorter. So, you got to kind of pick your poison. these are really, really nice groups. And, Secret Oath, she does not look like she's unbeatable in this race. She does not stand out on numbers and speed figures by any means.
No, I mean she's kind of a forgotten horse because she got beat by Ness pretty good twice,
Yeah,
and I don't think I think she's going to be a favorite in this race, but I kind of think that that horse has tailed off a little bit.
I
Even
agree.
it just doesn't. She doesn't feel like she has the same kind of impact she had in races earlier
Yep.
this year, and that's why I kind of like a Dari Manor.
Hmm.
I just don't think anybody in this race can run with her. I think she's
Dairy,
just going to go wire to wire.
Dairy Manor is the 2. And then the horse who I mentioned one more time was Shahama, who has progressed in that Churchill debut in the Kentucky Oaks. She was way out of it, and then she did get into the race, and she picked up some pieces. In her next start, she came back. She finished second, and then third time she puts it all together. She sits a nice trip, and I think she is continuing to progress. So I'll use Shahama, Barry, Adair Manor. Let's finish up with the big one on the card. Let's give some PA Derby thoughts in race number 12 before we get out of here. Set your alarms for us each and every week. We'll be here on Friday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. And we're also going to have a little extra live stream coming up this week. I've been doing the broadcast for Louisiana Downs. It is the final 4 days of Louisiana Downs coming up this week, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I'm not sure if you saw some of the fields for Tuesday. 11, 10, 11, 10, 11 for all the closeout races at Louisiana. They are going to be awesome. And because it's closing day on Tuesday, mandatory payout in the pick 6, in the pick 5, in the pick 4. So we're going to do an impromptu Tuesday morning live stream at 10 o'clock a.m. with Barry, with myself. Sarah El Badwi is going to join us. I think Jake is going to pop in. Jake from Thrilling Picks will pop in with the player too, and we're going to get that money pumped for Louisiana Tuesday. We're going to get a lot of buzz for Louisiana Tuesday. So come and join us on Tuesday. But before we get there, we have a big race on Saturday. We've got the Pennsylvania Derby, grade 1, $1 million. And you don't have Epicenter, who has risen to the top of the 3-year-old division. He's a horse that you've been a fan of, Barry, and he's really, really good right now. But if Epicenter doesn't show up in this race, you basically got everybody else that you could have expected here. You have Zandon, the Bluegrass winner, who's been just behind Epicenter a couple times. You have Skippy Longstocking, who just won the West Virginia Derby, was third in the Belmont. Cyberknife won the Arkansas Derby this year, won the Haskell. He was in the Haskell and the Travers, and he still comes out here. He's not dodging any of the big races. We the People was only 3-1 in the Belmont. Tawny Port has really started to improve in the second half of this season. This is your Ohio Derby winner. Taiba was only 5-1 in the Kentucky Derby. That's your Santa Anita Derby winner. Simplification won the Fountain of Youth. He was good at in Florida all throughout the early races this year. And then you've got the Florida Derby winner in White Abario. What a group here lining up for the PA Derby.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. My thought is that this is going to be really close to what the field might look like at the Pegasus.
Yeah, I could
You
see
know,
that. Yeah.
I don't think any of these horses are going to be, clamoring to go off the stud. And, I think next year we'll have a decent older horse crop. 4-year-olds are going to stick around, most of
Do you
them
think
anyway.
that's because of Flightline? A little
Um,
bit? Or like maybe, I wonder
well,
if it is.
I don't think there's any room for any other
Yeah.
stallions, to be honest. And these
Yeah.
guys aren't going to be, maybe Taiba,
At
but
this moment, they're not banging down the door, right? You need
right.
another year with a few more accomplishments for a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think this will help. Whoever wins this race is going to be kind of moved in that direction. But I still think they'll end up, probably down at in Gulfstream for the Pegasus with a similar group to this one. That being said, I don't think there's any surprises here. The two top horses are Taiba and Cyberknife, and I think they'll dominate this race from beginning to end. the horse that does get a special mention from me is Naval Aviator. I think that horse is very underrated, and improving, and I think that horse can hit the board here.
What's nice is he's faced older
Mhm.
recently, in his last few starts. Last time out, he faced Keep Me in Mind,
And running
who,
well.
and he ran well. And, Keep Me in Mind was a horse who was in these races last year, a lot of these big 3-year-old races. So dealing with older, and yeah, he's got some ability. For me, in a stable duel situation, I'm fine with Tawny Port too. I think he's just a little bit below those top horses. And if they go quick enough, like let's say Taba's out there early and Taba and Cyberknife are a little focused on each other, We the People's out there, now all of a sudden those three are going too quick. I actually think Tawny Port of the next grouping of horses would be right there in stable duel at 6-1. That'll cost you 5,000 in your stable duel lineup. But for me, he's a mate. I'll be using him. I've just been really impressed with Cyberknife as of late. Like those post Derby races. I mean, honestly, just put a line through the Derby and look at his last 3 races from the Matt win at Churchill. He sits just off the pace.
Mhm.
Then he's in the Haskell where he has a completely different trip. He's 6th of 8, about 5 lengths off, and he has to run down Taiba. And then last time out, he's in the Travers and he's down on the inside, and they just decide to get aggressive with him, and he runs a career best race and he finishes second that day. He's just versatile. He's a nice racehorse right now, and everyone's comparing him to Gunrunner because there are a lot of comparisons. You see a horse like this who's starting to peak towards the end of their 3-year-old season, and you think, wow, he could be really good right now. And, as you're saying, maybe into races like the Pegasus in the beginning of next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's got to be on their radar, especially if this horse wins on Saturday. Uh, you got to think they're looking for bigger and better things. It's like if they go to, let's say, the Breeders' Cup Classic, how much of a shot they're really going to have, and then say they lose that one, the only logical step would be, the races at the beginning of the year where you got the Pegasus, Dubai World Cup, Saudi Cup.
Yep.
So I expect Cyberknife to hang around. But what I did find interesting in this race is the rider merry-go-round here. Like, why is Pratt not riding Zandon, riding We the People?
Yeah.
Why is Irad on Tawny Port? I mean, it's just a little strange how the rider situation kind of folded out, and then Luis Saez ends up on White Barrio on the outside. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a little weird, because typically Chad Brown is kind of Irad Jose Ortiz
Yeah.
first, second, you know, and it's just strange. And then Pratt would be his third guy, and not in any one of those. And you get Rosario, who, he rides for Chad Brown a little bit, but not as much as the others.
It is a big, big Saturday at Parks, and Stable Duel is going to be doing it right with a $50 contest, $5,000 in cash prizes. There's also going to be a $5 game where there will be $300 in cash prizes. Now, let me pull up real quick. I believe that just a little bit later on today, there is going to be another pregame. So let's check this out real quick, and I can plug this for Bree. So yeah, coming up in just about an hour at, it looks like noon.
Noon
There's going to
Eastern.
be, noon Eastern. There's going to be a pregame, PA Derby pregame today with Bree Mott, Daniel Gibson. Danny Gibson is awesome. She's the director of PR out at Parks, and she knows everything that's going on. She was helping get all these horses ready. She knows all the stuff going on the backside. She's really, really sharp. Philly Boy has been doing a fantastic job with the series leading up. He had a fun interview with Kendrick Carmouche just the other day that you can check out. So they're going to have a live stream that starts at noon. If you're following Stable Duel, you can click right on it. It'll be right from the Stable Duel YouTube. So just pull that tweet up, click right on it at noon. They'll post it again, and that'll be coming up in just an hour. My friend, it's always a pleasure It's always my favorite way to start the weekend. I get pumped up. I get ready. You always lead me to a couple horses that might not have been on my radar that I'm going to be throwing in my lineups and in my pick 4s and my pick 5s. We always miss our buddy Matt DeSantis, who is heading over
On assignment. He's on assignment.
On assignment, baby. On assignment. And we will be back here next week. We'll start talking some Santa Anita, but we'll also be back again on Tuesday morning. So if you want to come hang out with us, 10 o'clock a.m., we'll get you all ready for Tuesday action from Louisiana on a must-play mandatory payout Tuesday. Right now, as we leave, we say hello to Joey Cleveland and goodbye to all of you.
Better, you want to spread your pony knowledge by